Hi. One of these days I'm going to actually write out a script first. It's not going to be today. A few people at my last show and a few other shows have questioned my monorails because, of course, they don't look like the original monorails, the 6990 and the Airport Shuttle, and I think it's the 6991, the Spirius one, but don't remember, but it doesn't matter. They said your monorail cars are smaller, and how did you do that? Because of course the original monorails, this is the flatbed, and of course they plugged into here, and well, I guess I can another one, and that was the extent of their monorails, and all three sets, and I have modified that. So a few people have asked me how I did it, what did I do, blah, blah, blah. This video is about modifying Lego with a Dremel. So if you don't want to see cut Lego pieces after cut pieces, then turn it off now. I'm not going to do any cutting because I actually can't find my Dremel, but you will be able to see what I've done because I kept all my pieces. Let's just start with my monorail trains right now, and you can see the various ones I have for my layout. So these are the various monorail trains I've been using over the years. That one way over here in the end, was my first. It's actually not even modified. You can see it's got the same bases as the other ones, as the ones that came in the set. I just made it into 6 wide instead of the 4 wide that came with the monorails, the monorail sets. I don't run that one right now. First of all, because it's my oldest, and I'm not exactly happy with it. It used to have 6 cars on it, which was a little bit of a modification. When we did the big, huge 12.5 by 12.5 space layout, Jeff and I had that this monorail here specifically had 6 cars, plus the 2 ends and then the motor in the middle. I might run it again at some point, but right now it is not able to be run. These are the other 4 trains that I'm running, the monorail trains that I'm running right now on the layouts that I've been doing lately. So let's go through one at a time. I'm going to be editing this, so if there's some disjointedness, that's just my editing process. So this is one of my favorites. I wanted to make a self-contained monorail train or car or engine, whatever, that didn't require anything else besides the actual motor and a battery box. So I had to come up with something in order to, of course, hold it all together. And basically, I mean, I'm going to take it apart, and I probably won't be able to get it back together while the camera's running. But it's just regular piece, driver. And so underneath here, underneath the front, you can see where I did the actual motor connection. The motor connection's there. Whoop, and it hides underneath here. And it comes up into here, and I hit it all the way up to the front, the top here on the battery box. So no modifications at all, no dremeling, no drilling. I just held it on with angle brackets. That worked here. So this is the studs that are actually in the monorail motor, and I just put this little L bracket on top. Waffle plate. I don't know why I do this, but I love using waffle plates as much as possible. This thing would have fit together better had I just put a regular 4x8 plate on here, but I just have to be me. And if I have a spot for a waffle plate and I'm not using waffle plate, I'm not a happy guy. So there's the battery box mounted. Of course, then it's too heavy and it'll just fall backwards like that. So you had to have some sort of weight on the front. Let me just put all this back together if I can. There we go. Yeah, so one thing about this one is that I hid this switch inside underneath the tile, so you actually don't have access to the switch to turn it off and on. And then this thing goes in there like that. Person goes inside because you need a driver, obviously. it goes on like that. So that's the entire motor, battery box, and a standalone. No bogies, no nothing. The only issue is, I'll show you. So this thing, oh, wrong way. I'll start over here then. Start way over there. The only thing is that this thing will not, obviously, go up a ramp. It will not go up a ramp at all. So it doesn't. I made the layout so it doesn't have to go up a ramp. So that's that one. It's cute. Kids love it. It goes around in circles on the layout. I mean, as long as there's no ramp on the layout, on the path that the thing takes, it works fantastically well. And it goes around all day. Usually one battery lasts the entire show. A couple shows actually, because there's no weight to it. All the other monorail trains have so many cars and whatever, there's a lot of friction or weight to it. So it always, I have to replace usually at least one battery a show per day. But this battery's been in here for 3 or 4 shows now. And it works pretty well. So next, the one that is as close to a regular monorail as you're gonna get, except shorter. That's this guy. And it's a bit of a cheat, and I use it basically in all my trains. But this back piece, these cars that are holding the shuttles, are just held together by this old piece. This ball and socket piece. And so these things do twist around, but it doesn't matter because they're being pulled by this guy. So forgive the wire. I should actually replace that. But as you know, all these old 9-volt wires, most of them start looking like that after a while. So I'll take that off, and take that off, and take that off. And so here's the actual motor. It's just hidden. People do this all the time. It's just hidden by this guy. So there's the motor there. And the 3x4 panels, 4x3 panels. And then the tails up front. So, and then I put the little hat on it. Just, I mean, you can still see the white, but then you can see the motor, and I can point out to people that there's the monorail motor right there. And so this is not modified at all. The modification comes with this guy and the back guy. So this is from a monorail platform car piece. What do we call it? This guy. Whatever you want to call it. So what happens is that I take a Dremel and I Dremel out this piece right there. Now I'll show you later in one of my other trains. I did it once where I did 1x4 studs across and this piece in the bottom, but then I couldn't reuse this piece nicely because you would see the cut there, the cut right here. So if I do this, I can actually put this piece back on with a plate across or whatever, build it in, so I can actually use this piece again. So that's all this is. And then let me just get this thing off. So this thing is just a regular 2x2 quote-unquote plate, and it just goes on the bottom there. See, that's it. That's all I did. Cut that off. What I would do to cut this piece is I would get a 2x2 plate that I don't need. I would place it on here like that, and then, and again, I wish I had my Dremel so I could show you really quick. And I would just fit, fit, fit. That's, you know, special effects, sound effects that I'm using for my Dremel sound. So I would cut around this thing and make this thing perfectly the size of a plate. You know, I should have a Brix separator here somewhere. There you go. Because if you put this thing on here, it's perfectly the same size as a plate. And that's just so I can use it properly. And as I say, you can put it back in here. Let's use this plate while I got it. You can put that right there. And you have yourself a regular monorail platform again. And that usually gets built in anyway. So so that's what I did there. So that's pretty easy if you don't mind taking a Dremel to Lego. I know that these platforms are very expensive. We'll get into that in a couple seconds. But not to say this, I happen to be growing up at exactly the right time for this hobby, because I bought the 6990 off the shelf when it was available in the stores. And then a year later, I bought 2 of the accessory packs each, so I got the switches and the extension and blah. And then I put an ad in the paper. I'm not going to go into all that. Most of you have heard it before, but I happened to acquire a lot of monorail track when it was cheaper, and I'm sorry about that, but I did. And I use it. That's what I like about it. I love the monorail. I don't know why they discontinued. I hear all the rumors. I don't care. They shouldn't have discontinued it, or they should bring it back, or some variant thereof. But again, we'll talk about that in a second at the end, because I got something semi-important to tell you about that. But anyway, so this is my piece. It goes on the bottom there, just like any other 2x2 modified plate. But when it comes to the actual bogie, so this is the bogie, and it's popped right off the bottom of one of these things. So you just, I'll put it back on here and I'll show you. So there's the bogie on the regular monorail platform, and it spins around, and then you just pop it off. And I realized, and I'm sure everybody else in the world has realized, that this is exactly the same as a half stud Technic pin. the mind goes. This is a half stud Technic pin. So you can actually just put it on a Technic plate like that, and it does exactly the same thing. There you go. So as soon as you do that, doors are open. You can do whatever you want with it. You can build this into whatever you want, because it can be separated from this thing. So you can have the connector piece to the motor and this thing anywhere else now. And as soon as I did that, I opened up the doors, so all of a sudden I can do this. Put that on there. I think that's in the right spot. Put this on here. You have to leave a little gap in the bottom. So it has, yeah, you have to leave a little gap. No, it's got to go back. Because of course the top, the actual pin is above the plate, and it will interfere if you put it on top of this little circle here. So you have to leave a little gap, a plate gap, and then that thing sits right on the bottom like that. And there you go, your little 8 stud monorail car, or 32 stud if you can handle the curves for that. 8 stud. And then this thing connects directly to the motor, just like that. See? And now you have, instead of this big huge thing, you have this little thing, and it's exactly the same, and it does exactly the same thing. So you people might be concerned because you see this extra little plate on top here that's built in. Well, you can see the hole here, and then if you look down into this hole here, you can see that there's a little nub or a little ring down there. That's what the top of the bogie connects to. So it's actually still only 1 plate thick. It's not 2 plates thick, it's 1 plate thick. The actual top of the bogie, the pin that holds it on. So this is just extra reinforcing, I guess. Or again, to stop it from binding if you put a brick on top of it. Because of course the top of the pin is recessed in that hole, which again, just listen, it's just 1 plate thick and not 2 plates thick. So now we got to this point, and we have a motor and a car, and then all I did again was do exactly the same thing for the battery box car. So you got your 2x2 modified plate now that I cut off a platform, a monorail platform, and another bogie connected to a Technic plate. So they do get dusty after a while, and they should actually clean these things because they're getting pretty bad. So many shows. So anyway, Technic plate, and then it goes on there, and that connects to there, and all of a sudden you have a mini monorail. And you put the battery box on. I didn't make mine with tiles like they do in the instructions in the actual Lego sets, because these things fall off the track when kids hit them, and I don't want to go looking for pieces as much as possible. I mean, they sometimes do break, but overall, so there it is, and we'll put this on the track, and then we can watch this thing go on the track. And this, of course, takes ramps perfectly fine, just like the real, the original monorail. go away from the wall. And it works in switches, and it works in the points and whatever. On the back of this guy, I have the ball and socket. So all you have to do then is create all these little cars with a ball on one end and a socket on the other end. And you can make as many cars as you want. But there is a bit of a thing. And I found this out when I went 5 or 6 or cars deep. Because again, this is just a regular Technic plate with a bogie on it, a monorail bogie on it. And none of this is modified now at all. No Dremels, no nothing. The only time you actually use a Dremel is to cut off that little 2x2 and you make a modified plate. The rest of this thing is completely stock pieces. So you got the ball and the socket on top of a Technic beam that's 2x8. And you again build a little bit of a space for that top of the Technic pin on the top of the bogie. And then you put it on here, and then there you go. It spins around. I found that putting the bogie back 1 stud or 2 studs from the center line away from the connection point makes it more stable. If you put it too close to the connection point, it gets wobbly this way, and if you put it in the center, it does flop over. So it does work better if you just put the bogie not centered in the middle, farther back from the actual connection point. And then the next 2, and then of course you just put because it does look cool going around the track. I mean, when I had 5 of them on here, it looked like a snake. Like something out of Ninjago or something. But anyway, well, wrong way. So now it just happily goes around the track. And so that's that one. So we'll put this one aside for now. Again, you can lift the whole thing. The ball and socket does hold together pretty well. Then we will get, I guess this guy. This guy was cool. It took me a lot to work out. Again, the actual cars are set up into 2 cars, because this made it, it got rid of the issue with it flopping over with just the ball and socket. And I can actually, because of this piece, the hinge piece in the middle, the swivel piece in the middle, I can actually put the bogies right in the middle, because this keeps it stable so it doesn't flop over, because now it's very stable. So the cars again, I used a 2x4 Technic plate, again with the half stud pin in the middle, and again a little bit of a void there, so the top of the pin doesn't get binded with anything. And so this works perfectly well, and they both spin. The only issue with these cars is when you get a whole bunch of them, and I did have a whole bunch more. I have 6 here. I think I went to 9 or 10. Is that they're just difficult to put on the track, because you have to manually swivel each wheel to put it onto the track. Each bogie you have to swivel to put on the track. But this is the fun part, this one right here. So I'll make this really quick. This pops off. Oh, stop that. It's powered. That's all it is. It's a cover for the motor. Okay, I'm gonna disconnect the battery. Again, I'll talk about that in a second. And I'm going to disconnect the battery because it keeps on moving on me. I'm going to take this off. Actually, I'm going to leave that on because it's just too difficult to work out. So let's talk about this piece first. Again, the bogey's in the middle because it's stabilized because of this piece. This is the brilliant part about the monorail, the original from out of the box, is that because of the connection point to the actual engine, it doesn't tip too much, which is fantastic. It's enough to get around corners and curves and whatever. So they designed that pretty well, because it's not just a flat piece, so it's not rigid, so it does have a little bit of flexibility on the I guess the Y direction. Could this be Z, X, Y, whatever. But it has a little bit, but not too much. If it didn't have enough, I don't think it would handle the curves coming off a ramp, because it'll be too rigid, like too stuck there. But so this is my first attempt at a Dremel, and again, I mentioned this earlier, is I actually made a 1x4 plate instead of a 2x2, and I tried to make the edges nice enough. But of course, when I don't have, that's probably my thrown up in, but you can't put that back on without seeing it, right? You could see that, and so therefore this couldn't go back and become a nice monorail platform original. Because I can build the 2x2 and you can hide it. This one you can't hide because you see the edges. But I did this first. This is the first one I tried, and so that's what I did. And then I realized that I can't go back. But this, again, the 1x4 just disconnects to here. So I could actually replace that with the 2x2, but I already cut these, so I'm not going to worry about it. I think a 2x2 would actually be better. In the end, they should all be 2x2s. 2x2 modified plate, make them into 2x, instead of a 1x4 modified plate. A 2x2 modified plate would look better and work better here. This one just always seems to fall off. 2x2 doesn't, because I think it's just because it's more, I mean, it's the same as, well, this only has 2 studs holding it on, first of all. And there's a reason for that, because I can't put 4-way across, because then it does bind. I found that out. It does bind with the edges here, and it didn't seem to want to work as well. But anyway, I have them here, and since this one works, I'm not going to change it. So there's that. There's the one side of the monorail train, so that works perfectly fine. Well, let's get into the other side. So this is where the heavy modification, I mean, that's modified, that's cut absolutely with a Dremel. This is where the really heavy modification comes in. In order for me to get this thing to stay together and for the wire to work properly, and to the wire basically for the wire to be hidden underneath here. See, so that fits right on top, and you can see it's nice, and you can open it up, and there's the motor inside. I know it's just these 2 1x2 tiles holding the whole thing together, just for the height reason. Actually, I never even thought about that. I could actually change that. But see, this fits right on top there, like that. So the only reason why I'm doing that is because it's level with this guy. I didn't realize I'm missing a tile there. But I should actually just put a 1x6 across here. That would make it a lot stronger, because this thing does tend to break. Because, I mean, as they say, it's just 1x2 tiles holding both halves together. I came up with an idea to fix that. I'm going to put 1x6 plates across, and then make it stronger. And of course I have to have the arrows together. That's me. But anyway, so this is the front of the motor, and this the power lead going to the front of the motor, and then a tile hiding it. So when you look at this, that's nice and hidden. The back, and this is going to be little. Let's do this. Let's pull this off, right off. For the wire to come into here and curve around the motor nicely so it gets up to here, I had to get a way of holding the wire here on this side. So I took a couple 2x2 plates and I drilled holes in them, and I routed them so the wire comes straight out the back, instead of, like, because it always pushed on the side of this thing before. It would always push out the side when I was just coming out the middle, because it would fit, because it's coming in right at the edge of the monorail motor. And it does have room to do that, but then the wire itself would just kind of keep on pushing this out like that, and it always break. So I took a couple 2x2 plates, drilled some holes with my Dremel, and made it so the wiring would stay in one spot. So that's the modification there. And the other, of course, the modification is I took a regular 9-volt battery lead, because I can't have, there's no room for a battery box in this little train. And I didn't care, because I hid the battery. I took a battery lead and I connected it to a 9-volt power connector. And that's what I did there. And I should actually probably solder that sometime, instead of, I use, okay, this is where a lot of my friends who are electricians are going to kill me. I use masking tape. And I just, the wires together. Twist the wires together. Separate, of course, because it wouldn't be working if it wasn't. But I just wrapped both ends with both connectors with masking tape. I should fix that someday. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Don't do as I say, kids. I mean, don't do as I do, kids. And this is the other cool part about the 9-volt battery. So the 9-volt battery sits right in the middle. It's just slightly wider than 2 studs. It's got a little bit of friction, like see? It's just held in, pressure fit there. And then you can close this thing up. See? It's closed. That's kind of fun. The other thing is, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, the connection. So I just have the wire coming out. Shush. I just have the wire coming out the bottom. This is the other one I made. This was the second one I made, because the first one being the 1x4 tile, plate, modified plate, making it into a 1x4 modified plate, the connector point, I found to be very weak. So I made a 2x4 modified plate, and this was the worst idea, because now you really wrecked the thing, because like that, seriously, that looks really bad. So that's that piece. It goes back under here. I have to turn the bogey until it's fixed on the track. This thing goes in front, just like that. And then I'm gonna, well, I'll leave this, I will leave this off for now, but let's watch this work. So again, just like the other one, that works perfectly fine everywhere. Corners, ramps, switches. And then we'll put this back on. Again, the arrows have to match up because that's just me being pedantic. Here's the good bit about the swivel pieces in the cars, because this piece now is standalone, and you can put it on the back. Hey, stop. And you can put this one in the back. And you can just basically keep on going. This will work as long as the battery and the motor will hold out to pull the train around. Because this thing, the longer you get, the more tippy they become, because there's nothing holding them vertical. So if you put 5 or 6, this back one is like really woey. 3 is fine, but this one, well, you won't have that issue, because this thing has got that there, and that there, and that there, and yet it can still do ramps. Because of course, if you just put this swivel every point, it will never be able to do a ramp, because this thing will be all one rigid horizontal piece. So it's swivel, ball and socket, swivel, ball and socket, swivel, ball and socket. And so when we go this way, I also think it looks really cool going around. Again, sort of like a snake. And it comes back down. So swivels, ramps, curves, switches, that thing has no issues with any of it. As I said, it was much longer previously, but I just wanted the batteries to last longer, so I took a bunch off. So that's that one. This was the last one I built. I built it, I think, last winter or winter before. Anyway, I built it very recently because I was trying to figure out how to incorporate the motor itself into a car. And that took a little bit of doing, but when you look at it, it's like, why did this take so long to figure out? This is like, this was easy, but it did take me a long time. So I'm actually just going to do this first before I show you everything. And this required the same amount of modification as the other ones. I still had to cut either a 1x4 or 2x2 modified plate out of the monorail platform. But other than that, there's no other changes. So here it is in some detail. It could go up ramps if you replace this with a ball and socket, but I didn't bother because the track that this is on in my layout is all one level. So I just use these things. It just makes it easier for me taking off and putting on the layout. So these pieces are not modified at all. In the back, again, the bogey is on top of a Technic plate. You can see I left one ball and socket connection back here because I guess I forgot to change that one. But the rest of them are all swivel joints. Oh, this one, and this one, they're all swivel joints. And the tops come off just because I didn't have a way of actually studding them in. But this is the battery box. It's pretty easy, pretty standard. Again, it's in there. It takes up a whole car, which is fine. This is your battery box, your standard battery box, and your standard 9-volt connection. I'm going to put the camera down for a second and I'll show you how I did the motor. So I used a 1x4 modified plate that I created from, again, another monorail platform. And then the wire just comes out through that little gap there, which is fine. This is, I don't know why I didn't think of this originally. So there's the motor and there's the front bogie. Again, the bogie is just plugged into a Technic plate, but here's the motor and it's hanging by a turntable on a 2x6 plate. That's it. So this thing actually spins and you can see it spinning. I'm moving it with my finger and that's all you needed because that's all it has to do. So you can put the motor right into your train car. So I'll show you this if you really wanted to. Of course that might cause a little bit of binding. Of course I didn't build it for this guy at all. So, but forgive it. This will still work. So here's your battery box on a regular monorail platform, and this thing will just go run, and this will actually go up and down. So you can hide the motor in an actual car if you wanted to, instead of just having it by itself. No modifications at all. There's no dremeling on any of that. It's all going to work properly. But I'll show you how I did, and this is kind of important. So you can see right there, I put a 2x2 tile on the back of the monorail motor, and of course it has to swivel for the curves. So I hope we got that. I'll show you again. Let's stop. There's a 2x2 tile right there, and it's usually, yeah, rests on top of that thing. The thing has to be able to go back and forth. So the wire actually comes in from the side, not the top or the bottom. It comes in from the side. Again, the wires really beat up, and I should again replace them. But so you got the 2x2 electric connector on the motor, on the monorail motor, and I just put the tile on just to hide it. But you need the gap here between the 2x2 tile and the outer edges, so the thing can actually swivel, go around corners and stuff. But you can do that. So this is what I did. Battery box, wire. Again, no modifications there. The only modification here is the actual 1x4 modified plate with the monorail connector on it. So this will handle corners too, of course, because it's plugged into the actual monorail motor and it has the swivel on the motor itself. But of course, as soon as I start adding other cars, it won't work that way anymore. And I'll show you what happens when you try. So this may work because it's just 2 cars, and it'll act just like that guy when you have the swivel ball and socket, swivel ball and socket. This may work. I can't remember if I tried this for ramps. Nope. That's what happens. So because of the swivel joint and it's not ball and socket, it can't handle the ramps. It's too big and it'll just fall off the track. I don't mind because, of course, my layout is so small. I don't have a lot of ramps in it. The only monorail train that I have that has to go up ramps is this guy here, and that works perfectly fine. So this guy stays on one level. I can modify it back to the ball and socket, but I'm not going to for my layouts. I find this, when it's on flat, it's a lot more stable. But anyway, so that's exactly what I did for my monorails, for my layout. But specifically on that note, when it comes to monorail platforms and stuff, they don't sponsor me at all, and I don't even think they know who I am. It's just fine by me. But there's a website called 4D Brix, and these guys 3D print monorail pieces. It's and track pieces like regular train track, Lego train track. I was just on their website again today. I've never ordered from them because I don't have to. I might actually do something in the near future because I just went on the website today and noticed that they have a track to stud level on a base plate, what they call it the monorail tile, and that looked so cool that I might have to order some. Yeah, so 4dbricks.com. I'm going to put a link in the video, even though they didn't ask me to. And but I just want to support whoever I can. So the 5 people that are going to watch this video can know that you can still buy third-party monorail track. So they make all the monorail track that you see here. They print it, and they actually have different, besides the originals, the curves and the straights, and the half curves, which I might have to order some. They have 4 stud pieces, 4 stud and length pieces, other pieces, and as I said, this monorail tile. I'm going to have to get my hands on some. So I might make it over myself. But anyway, 40brix.com. As for this, I hope you liked it. I've been meaning to do this video for a while because some people have been asking at shows. I just had a request from somebody online because they saw my video and they said, hey, that's, again, how did you do that with the monorails? As soon as you learn this, Technic plate and bogey, everything golden. I just thought that was the best. Again, Lego being Lego is fantastic. So there you go. I'm saying a lot. Sorry about that. I'm going to try to get better. But there you go. And I hope you liked it. I've had a lot of fun with this because I've been modifying monorails for the last 12 years for my layouts and trying to come up with new and unique ideas for the monorails, monorail trains. And I am kind of set with these guys right now. For a while, I might change up in the future. But right now, these 4 trains that I have, these 4 monorail trains that I have, are going to be used in the layout. I am going to do a video pretty shortly if I get it working again. If you go back in my YouTube listing of videos and go right back to basically the beginning, you'll see that I had copper tape on the monorail track and I had power pickups on the monorail, so I didn't have to use battery boxes. It was just like the old slot cars from back in the day, and that worked wonderfully. I might try that again. I'm just trying to source better tape that doesn't expand and contract the way copper does, because that's what killed me living up in Canada between winter and summer. The monorail track, the copper just got completely bubbly and completely wasted. But I'm going to try that again, and I'll show you that one because I think that's also very cool because you can eliminate the battery box. So that's the video, and we'll talk to you guys later.